what's up? This is Mike
and Toro from Synergy Inline
with a video review / how to modify the Youth Airliner Frames. Take it away, brother.
Alright, the main issue I have with these frames, first off I want to say they're great, they're lightweight, but the main issue is the plastic frame spacer. What happened to me was, I was hooking my REM's white HRs up, I was on the last wheel, almost complete skate, completely snapped. It snapped from here to all the way to the hole. Other than that, they slide really good, but I would rather skate Valo frames than these frames, only because of the metal and the plastic spacers.
Right on. So what we're about to show you is how to modify and put metal frame spacers in youth frames. The reason how I came up with this idea was I have a pair of Valo frames, and what I noticed was that these frames are very similar to the Valo frame in shape. So what I realized was also that the Valo frame spacers would fit perfectly in a youth frame. So that's what we're going to show you right now. Alright, so for this modification you're going to need a Dremel tool. Every rollerblader should have one. And good all-purpose drill bits, not crappy ones. First thing I did was I drilled a hole, okay, through the old axles, where the axles went. Now I used a 3/8 multi-purpose drill bit, a nice sharp good one, and what I did was I basically very carefully lined it up with the inside, the center. An important thing to know is 3/8 is actually smaller than the size of the axle, so it gives you a little bit of room for play, which we'll talk about in a minute. So basically you line up your drill bit right to the center of where the axle goes in, and you very carefully drill, not on a super high speed. You just come through and take off the majority of the plastic all the way through from one end to the other. So basically, essentially what you're doing is this. You're coming through like this. Now, it's very important that you do this evenly, that when the end of the drill bit enters the other end of the frame, it's coming in centered, and that basically is simulating how the axle is going to sit in the frame. This is very important. So to do that, you just run your drill bit back and forth a few times, clear out as much material as you can. Be careful not to go super fast as to grab this piece and snap it, because if you're not using sharp drill bits, it could snap this end of the wall off. So be very careful doing that. Anyway, the next thing I proceeded to do was I used a cutting bit. Okay, it's like it's kind of like, it's a metal cutting bit / router type thing, but it's really great at taking away plastic. So what I did was I just basically got in there and took away most of the old spacer with this bit. Now I didn't go all the way down to the bottom. I just took out the bulk of it, just most of it. Okay, that's what this bit is for. Now after that, what you're going to proceed to do is you use one of these fine grit sandpaper Dremel bits. Now make sure you use as fine grit sandpaper as you can, because it helps you get a nice smooth finish. And the fatter the bit is, it's going to be easier to make a flatter surface. And you basically just take off all the rest of the material with this bit here, nice and flat. Just don't press really hard, don't force it too much. Just let the Dremel tool do its work, sanding off all the rest until you feel that it's completely flat. And you'll have something that kind of resembles this. This is kind of a rough version, but it sort of resembles that. It'll be nice and flat. And once that's done, once the old spacer is completely removed and you've drilled your holes, the next thing you're going to do is use a type of a cutter / router bit. Okay, so it's like it's kind of, as you can see, it's just two cutting tools, one there, and this, very carefully, what you're going to do is you're going to get onto the inside of the axle, or where the axle goes, and you're not going to push very hard, but you're going to kind of begin to clean away a lot of the old material that's in there. And what you're going to do is you're just very, very carefully, not pushing hard. If you push hard in any one direction, it'll start messing up the circular. You need this hole to be a circle. Okay, so essentially you're going around very carefully, taking off just a very little bit at a time. Then you get your spacer. Okay, and basically the end result is what you see here is this. What you're going to do is you take your router bit in there, take off a tiny bit, put it down, get your spacer, see if it fits in there. If it absolutely will not fit in there by pushing it in with your hand, put the spacer back down, grab your Dremel tool, and cut a tiny bit away more, to the point where you can kind of, sort of feel like you can push the spacer in. And once you feel like you can push the spacer in all the way, grab a pair of pliers, that's what I did, and I just, boom, squeezed it together, and the end result was that. I mean, this spacer is fitting in there absolutely perfectly. And as you can see, there's room for the axle, the head of the axle, to grab the frame as well, and it's perfectly flush. Again, these are Valo frame spacers. They do resemble exactly the old plastic Youth spacers, as you can see. They resemble. This modification actually worked really, really great for me. If you end up doing this modification and while you're putting your router bit in there and the spacer fits in there and it kind of falls out, but as long as there's no space around the outside of the frame here, in the hole, that's fine too. It doesn't have to fit completely snug in there. If you end up taking a teeny little bit off, that's okay. It's perfectly fine. But basically, the goal is to get your wheels to fit in there. And it's okay if there's a teeny bit of room there. Basically, that's what the axle does when it tightens. You put your axle in there. Let's see this thing. Goes all the way through. Look at that. Nice and straight through. There's the axle. As you can see, the axle is coming all the way to almost the end of the spacer, which is great. You get your little thing there, just tighten it on up, and that's it. Done. What the end result is, you get this wheel spin, which you will not get on a pair of plastic frames. I mean, you might get it a little bit, but it'll eventually end up going away. And what you will end up having is a much better pair of frames. They will last longer, more durable. One of the principles I like to kind of go by when it comes to metal frame spacers is this: metal on metal on metal. What that means is that the axle is pushing up against this metal frame spacer, which is then pushing up against just the inside of the bearing. What that does is it gives you a nice secure fit. I mean, you're going to tighten these to the point where you just can't tighten them anymore because it's all metal. Now, with a plastic frame spacer, the problem is that all of that pressure is being put directly on the frame. You understand? So, when you have metal on metal on metal, it is relieving stress from the frame, which also allows it to last longer. So the frame can do its job, the plastic does its job by absorbing the shock and staying durable, and the axles and frame spacers and bearings all do their job with wheel spin, keeping the wheels on. And that's it.
Alright, so that's basically how you modify a Youth frame with metal frame spacers. I just want to say I skated 2 pairs, this pair and the Cream Farmer pair. I had no problems with those. I ride them anti-rocker, slides amazing. I also want to say we don't work for any skate companies. We don't work for Razors, Power Slide, The Conference. We're just skaters. We're not sponsored. We just love what we do, and we're trying to help you guys pick out good skate products.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate the most important thing about, so that everyone understands why you should have metal frame spacers is for this reason: metal on metal on metal. What that means is the axle is squeezing up against the frame spacer, and the frame spacer is squeezing up against the bearing. Those are 3 metal things pressing up against each other, which creates a really solid connection, gives you maximum wheel spin, and takes away pressure from the frame. When you have a plastic frame spacer, all the pressure is going directly to the frame, which will crack much faster. So that's basically it. If we were to rate these frames on a scale of 1 to 10, I don't know, what would we have to say? We'd have to say these are about a 7?
I would give them about a 7.
Yeah.
Because I had one pair that cracked and one I skated like 15 sessions with, and they didn't crack, which is the Cream Farmer ones. If they came with metal frame spacers though, they'd probably get like an 8 or possibly even a 9.
I'd say about 8.5, 9. Yep.
Yeah, if they came with metal frame spacers.
So, that's basically it for our video review / how to modify. And until next time, peace and love.
Cheers.
And cheers.